I'm so excited to share today's video with you because I am sharing the nitty gritty, the real advice about how I save money in sewing. Some of this I have not shared with you before, but if I, a total and utter shopaholic, can do it, then so can you. You guys seem to love this video up here because I was giving real honest advice, so I'm going to carry that through. So buckle up and let's get into the first one. So I'm going straight in and I'm going to say I stopped keeping up with the Joneses. When I first started to sew, I was on Instagram, I was on Facebook, I was everywhere looking in magazines, books. I was trying to keep up with the trends, what was going on. If someone did a fabric haul, I had to go and order that fabric. If someone made a pattern up, I went and made that pattern up. It got really expensive really quickly. Now, if you don't know what keeping up with the Joneses is, it's just trying to keep up with other people in terms of materialistic objects. Historically, in a street, if your neighbour got the top of the range washing machine, you'd go out and buy it too. That's what keeping up with the Joneses is. But now we're online, there's so much more influence than just your neighbours and friends. I guess this harks back to getting dopamine hits from purchasing things. When we buy stuff, it makes us feel really good, especially if we're compensating in some other aspect of our lives. Then we might be more inclined to buy more stuff, and we're just getting inspiration from other people. Inspiration that had we not seen the thing, we wouldn't have bought it, and we could end up broke doing this if we're not broke already. I know there are people out there that will buy things, post photos on social media to make it appear like they've got better lives than they have, and that is keeping up with the Joneses. If we're not keeping up with other people, we sometimes feel like we are inferior, that we are not as good as them. For better or worse, as a society, we tend to put our self-worth in things we own, whether that is like the snazziest car, the biggest sewing machine, the nicest sofa, the biggest house. We always want better and better, and it's just showing off essentially, isn't it? It is, it's just showing off. I think first off we need to address our mindset and come to the realization that those things really do not matter, and that is something that I have done over the years. It's an ongoing battle. I wouldn't say I'm completely cured, I'm definitely not, and it is an ongoing battle, but I would say in sewing I have got it under control. If you saw my spending when I first started sewing compared to now, you would be amazed at the transformation. So what did I do? One of the first things I did was stopped watching haul videos for fabric, because you watch these haul videos and others will do haul after haul after haul. It's just buying more and more and more fabric, and then when I would watch those videos, I would want that fabric as well, and in a lot of cases I would go out and buy it, and if I couldn't buy it I would feel bad because I wasn't able to have that fabric. So I just put a stop to watching sewing haul videos. Now I get it, everyone likes to shop. Haul videos are popular for a reason. I share haul videos on my other channel because I like to share what I've bought when I've been shopping, and that could just be buying a bag of pasta. It doesn't have to be anything flashy. So I do understand that people love haul videos and people love to do haul videos. But for me personally, it was a problem because I was spending money that I didn't have on fabric that I didn't know I wanted. I also stepped away from Instagram accounts, either where influencers were showing off their fabric hauls or making loads and loads of garments, or maybe I stepped away from businesses as well, and I did that to quite a few sewing fabric businesses. I just deleted them because if I needed fabric, I needed to be intentional about my purchases. And so that's the next step, is to just be intentional. Take your time when you're starting a new project. Think about the fabric you want and then go looking for that fabric. They are some real good things that you can do, and things that I did do. And by doing that, I saved a ton of money. So the next thing I did that saved me a ton of money was I unsubscribed from business emails. You know the ones. They bombard your inbox. They take over. You feel like you can't get your inbox under control because you've got so many newsletters coming in on a daily basis. We've all been there. At one point, I signed up to loads just because of my YouTube channel and wanting to stay abreast of stuff, but it's no good. So another reason I signed up was to get the 10% discount, and then you forget about them, don't you? And then a month later, you're getting bombarded with all this stuff you didn't know you want, you don't really need, but then you're tempted anyway because it's there in your face. And moreover than that, it keeps it in our mind, even if we're not buying there and then. Those businesses are in our mind, which is what they want. When we do want to go and buy, we're going to look at them, and we might still end up making purchases that we don't intend to make. So here's the things I did and the things I would suggest that you do if it's a problem for you. First off, think carefully before you're subscribing, which I do now. Before, I would just put my email address and that is it. I was subscribed. Now I think very carefully. I also, once I've subscribed, if I'm doing it to get a 10% discount or a 15% discount, I subscribe, I get my discount, and then I unsubscribe straight away. So I'm not thinking about it. Another thing I do is that when a newsletter email comes in, I assess whether I really, really want that newsletter to come on a regular basis. If I don't, when the email comes in, I unsubscribe there and then. And I've been doing that over time, and the amount of emails I get now are few and far between. Sometimes a really old one that I signed up to years and years ago may have seeped its way with a new newsletter. And then over time, you will have next to no subscription newsletters coming into your inbox, and you are going to stop finding out when they're selling stuff, when they've got deals, when they've got discounts, and you're going to save yourself so much money. And ultimately, you're doing these businesses a favor by unsubscribing, because when you subscribe to them, they have to pay a fee to have so many subscribers. And the more subscribers they have in their database, the more they have to pay. So by weeding yourself out, if you're not someone that's going to buy anything, then you're actually doing them a favor. So the next thing I do that saves me a ton of money, this might be the biggest thing of all. By the way, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a like and a comment down below. Right, so yes, the biggest one of all. I stopped impulse buying fabric and patterns. You heard me right. My name's Claire and I'm an addict. Yes, that is right. When I started sewing, I totally fell in love with the craft, but I also fell in love with buying stuff for the craft. What is it they say? They're two different hobbies. It is so true. I was buying loads and loads of fabric. Now, in my defence, I was convincing myself that I was saving it for a rainy day, because I knew with my health that one day would come and I wouldn't be able to work. And I did not want to think about the fact that I might be out of work and not be able to afford fabric. I could not have thought of a worse thing at that time. And so that's how I justified it. But really, I should have been putting the money away for a rainy day rather than the fabric. So what happened with my stash when I come to need it or to use it was that it wasn't to my taste anymore. Also, I didn't necessarily have the right cut amount. So I might need 3 meters for a dress, but only have 2 meters of the one I want to use. So that was no good. And of course, if you are stashing PDF patterns, if you don't use them yourself, it's a complete and utter waste of money. You cannot resell those patterns because they are just for you. They're downloads. You're legally not allowed to resell them. And so if you then change your mind about that pattern, your style changes, you forget about it, you fall out of love with that pattern, then it's a complete and utter waste of money. I know, because I've got loads. I've got probably over 100 patterns in my database that I will never use. So what I did to stop doing this, well, it was a process and I found it really hard to start with, but over time it did get easier. The first thing I do when I see a pattern or fabric that I get really excited by, I recognise that dopamine hit, that excitement, that euphoria that is causing that, and then I step away. I will step back from purchasing for 24 hours, 48 hours, a week, even a month sometimes, and then I reassess when that initial rush is gone, because then I'm making a more informed decision. Our brains are programmed to tell us or convince us that we need that thing when we're having that rush, and it's just not true. You might say to yourself, but this discount is only on for 24 hours. Wait for the next time they offer a discount. But that fabric might be gone in a day. It's going to be sold out if I don't buy it right now. There's lots of other beautiful fabrics that you will come across. Just don't rush into anything is the biggest thing I can say. And the more you step back over time, the more you will find yourself not even getting that excited to purchase the things immediately. And that is what I found has happened to me. So what you can do is when you do go back to it after you've had some cooling off time, you can ask yourself, do I really need this? Does it fit in my wardrobe once I've made it? Do I have the time to make it? Do I have the inclination? If it's a pattern, do I have the right fabric? If it's a fabric, do I have the right pattern for it? And more often than not, the chances are going to be no, but you can then purchase per project, purchase intentionally. When you've got a project that you want to do, go and look for the pattern, go and look for the fabric and purchase that way. That's how I have found that I'm spending a lot less money. So the next way that I'm saving money is I stopped lying to myself, basically. Yes, I stopped convincing myself, the sun's coming out again. I stopped convincing myself that I need the thing. And this harks back to the last point I was making. When we get super, super excited, we convince ourselves that we need the thing. And you might not even be in a position where you're buying something there and then, but it could just be that you want to make something and you convince yourself you're going to do it when in actual fact you're not. And the chances were always really, really slim that you would do it. But your brain doesn't let you think about it. It's very similar to when you're on a diet and you go to the shop and you're faced with a bar of chocolate and your brain wants that chocolate, and your brain will do anything it can to convince you that buying that chocolate and consuming that chocolate right now is the best thing you will ever do in your life. And then the second you've taken that last morsel in your mouth, it all comes flooding back. Why did I do that? The regret. Yeah, we've all been there, haven't we? We've all been there. And that's what we do when we want to sew something. I did this just the other week. Now, overall, I'm really good and I haven't done it for a long time, but I have done it again. Just a little while ago, I convinced myself I wanted to make Darren a coat of all things, when I'm barely managing to do a t-shirt at the moment. But no, I told myself it'll be fine, it'll be fine. He needs a coat for work, despite the fact that he works from home. And so I started getting all the supplies together. They're in this bag waiting to be made up. Got all the supplies. I said to myself, I'll use fabric that I already have to keep costs down. I collected, or I bought all the notions, all the poppers, all the zips, everything. I went and purchased a pattern for him, which wasn't even the right pattern, but I told myself I would adapt it. And so here we are, a month, 6 weeks later, I still haven't even touched it. I've printed it off and I haven't gotten any further than that. But had I not convinced myself to do it, I would have saved myself some money. Because even though the fabric is already what I had, the zips, the poppers, the string, all the interface and all the rest of it wasn't. So ultimately what you've got to do is be realistic about your time, your energy, your motivation, and tell yourself, if you want to do it, if you might really want to do it, but buy the pattern, buy the fabric, buy the things when you're about to start the project, a day or two before, because you might never start that project no matter what your thoughts are. I know that was the case for me. So the next thing I did that saved me a ton of money, a ton, maybe not a ton, but it did save me some money. And that was, I went through my wardrobe, I organised the clothes I have, I decluttered, I donated, and actually I also kept an inventory of what I have and what I don't have, so I know what I'm needing. When I need to go and make a project, I can assess there and then whether I do need it or not. Before I would think, oh, it's too overwhelming to go in there. Let's just do the thing. We want the thing. Let's have the thing. Then I was ending up with 4 or 5 of the same thing. You may have even seen my wardrobe declutter the other year. It was horrendous. There was so much stuff that I made and I just never ever wore. So do yourself a favour, get completely organised, and then you know what you need. And this doesn't just apply to clothes. It applies to fabric stash. It applies to pattern stash. I have a video on how to organise your pattern stash. It also applies to supplies. Get organised, and then you're not doubling up buying things that you already have. We've all done that, haven't we? So the next thing I do that does save me money sometimes, it's not perfect, but it does work sometimes, and that is to check Facebook Marketplace, Freebay, thrift shops or charity shops. Look around for second-hand things of the thing you need before you go and buy new, because chances are you will find it, and you'll find it at cut price. You're going to stop wastage because you're using what someone else doesn't want anymore instead of buying another thing. So you're going to be helping the environment as well. But mostly you're just going to be saving yourself some money doing that. Now, I don't always remember to go to the charity shops. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But it's something I'm doing more and more. Just yesterday, I came across this in the charity shop, and it was £1, and it is half a reel of piping cord, which I will use for some DIYs on the other channel. But how cool is that? Could use it on my clothes as well if I wanted. But someone chucked that out. Had I bought that new, that was going to cost me a lot more than £1. So you can get some right old bargains. Talking of bargains, the next thing I did was I stopped buying cheap bargains. Well, I got a cheap bargain because it was in the charity shop. That's very different to what I'm talking about now. What I'm talking about is buying £1 a metre fabric and supplies as well, super cheap zips and things like that. Cheap interfacing. No. Stay away from that stuff. Stay away. It was a lesson that I learned over a long period of time. And I'm saving you the bother of learning that lesson. Don't buy cheap interfacing unless it's all you can afford. If it's all you can afford, then it's all you can afford. But what I found when I was first sewing is I was purchasing all of these all the cheap fabrics. If I could get a cut of fabric for £1 a metre, I considered it the best day of the year. I really did. I thought it was a huge coup to have £1 a metre fabric or £2 a metre fabric. But what happens is it's a cheap fabric. It doesn't feel nice on. It doesn't feel nice to sew. It's really difficult to sew. The fabric is warped, so you can't cut it on grain. Then it doesn't hang properly. Even if you don't have all those problems, you put it in the wash and it lasts 1 to 2 washes before it either bobbles or falls apart. It is just not worth the effort. I used to convince myself I'd buy lots of cheap fabric so I had lots to choose from. But now I don't have that mindset at all. I go with the idea that I buy a quality piece of fabric, and even if I'm buying less fabric, i.e. not sewing so much, obviously I still have to buy the same cut because I still got to cover my body. We don't want to go around with half a garment on, do we? But I buy it less often, so I'm sewing less garments, which is good for the environment. It's good for me. It saves me money because when I'm buying quality fabric, it can last maybe 10 years if it's looked after properly. And it's a complete and utter false economy to be buying cheap fabrics and cheap supplies. What's the point of making a coat using a cheap zip that will break after 2 uses? I've wanted to cry when that's happened before. It is not worth it. It is not worth it. So the next point on my list is, wow, it says, stop buying shit I don't need. Honestly, that is the gist of it, isn't it? Magazines were my thing. We've all got our thing, haven't we? Let me know down below what your thing is that you buy that you don't really need and you're just addicted to buying it. These magazines, there's so many of them out. I think now there's more than there ever was. But even when I was buying them 5-6 years ago, there was so many of them. And they're not cheap, are they? They're like £6-7 a pop, and they get you by putting a free pattern in. It was ridiculous. I would buy these magazines thinking that I really need it because I'm getting a free pattern that I can't afford to buy otherwise. That pattern was the same price as buying a pattern. That magazine, I mean, was the same price as buying a pattern. And anyway, the pattern that come with it never ever fit me. It only ever went up to a size 18 or 20. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was completely addicted to these magazines. Completely. For years and years, I must have spent a small fortune on them. I must have. Books as well. I've stopped buying books, although I did just buy the Cashmerette book, but other than that, I haven't bought any books. And I don't intend to buy any more books. When I started, I bought all the books. They were all on my shelf and I ended up selling them on at a loss because they were just cluttering up my home and I was never going to use them, let's be frank. So if you've got something like that, where you have to buy a thing that you just don't use, save your money and put your money into something else. So the next thing I did that saved me money is something I'm sort of in the early stages of doing, but I'm very, very hopeful for it, and that is sewing a capsule wardrobe. What you'll notice with the things that I've been sewing are things that can go with other things. So like the top that I was just making on my 1 hour challenge was a raglan t-shirt that when I perfect it and I make it up will fit with lots of different things. Like that dress that I made not long ago, again, I'll be able to wear that again and again with a different cardigan or without a cardigan. I can wear them with leggings, without leggings. It will be versatile. All the pieces I make have to be versatile so they can go with other things. That way I can make less garments and have more outfits. And I'm going to save money that way instead of just making garment after garment after garment that doesn't go with each other. And then you have all these garments in your wardrobe trying to fit them all in, and it's ridiculous because your wardrobe collapses. Yes, that happened to me. The bar fell down and I knew it was time to declutter my wardrobe at that point. If you like this video and you like the topic of it, do check out my good friend Alicia's video here where she's giving 10 tips on saving money in sewing as well. If you like this video, click like, do all the things. Consider purchasing me a coffee and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.